Guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. I'm going to answer questions from last week's videos, which there were 4, I believe, altogether. Lots of good questions from you guys, so I think I'm just going to jump right in. The first video was new perennials for 2021, and I went through, I think, 14 different categories of perennials, some of which had multiple varieties. And I did that one kind of in a, like, number 1 was the one I'm most excited for, and then just kind of worked my way down the list. And there's a lot of fun new stuff. And we had previously done a new annuals and new shrubs. The shrubs I had to break into 2 videos because there were so many new ones coming out. So 4 videos altogether. We'll link the other ones down below if you're interested in taking a look at those. But the first question was from Paula. She said, off topic, but what is the small potted evergreens behind you? How would they do in a west-facing window box? So these are lemon cypress, and I actually saw that question a lot in this video, so I thought I would answer. We did do a video all about lemon cypress and how to care for them indoors and such, so we will link that one down below as well. And they are doing great up here. This is not a heated sun porch, but it is very protected, and then, you know, the sun, clearly, it's so bright today. I'm having a hard time not squinting, but I have a shade up. But normally the shade's not up and the sun just barrels into this room and it keeps it really nice and warm. And then through the really cold part of the winter, I have a little floor heater that we turn on every once in a while, or it's on the thermostat, so it pops on rather every once in a while if the temperature gets to a certain low, because I have citrus in here as well. But the lemon cypress, I think they're zone 7. Let me look. 7. Yep, 7 through 10. So technically they would have wintered over here because we've had a really, really mild winter, but most winters they won't. So we'll have to, like, if I have them in a window box, which I had a number of these in our kitchen window box, I'll have to dig them out and pot them and bring them in somewhere protected. But they would do great. They do great outside, I mean, during the season. And if you live in a zone 7 through town, they do great. 7 through 10. Did I say town? If you live in a zone 7 through 10, they'll do great for you outside all year round. Courtney said, do daylilies make a good cut flower? They don't, because their individual flowers just last a day, and so you would be pulling them out of that arrangement very, very quickly. But as a perennial planted out in the garden, they push so many blooms that they're usually in color and have blooms for weeks at a time. There are some varieties that will bloom throughout the whole entire season. Like, they'll just keep on, you know, churning out more blooms. And then there are some types that will just bloom for a specific amount of weeks, and then they're either done, or they'll do the specific amount of weeks and then they'll lull out for a little while and then they'll bloom again later in the season. So most of them will tell you their bloom season on their tag. Janie said, hi Laura, just a quick question regarding buried treasure strawberry seeds. Are proven winners willing to post to the UK? I don't think they can they? There's like way too much red tape going international. So unfortunately at this time, I don't think that they can do that. Heather said, I planted a bunch of creeping phlox plants at the edge of a retaining wall. The tag says 12 to 18 inches and 18 to 24 inches wide, but they are spreading way more than that. I even trimmed them after they're done blooming, yes. So, you know, like the individual plant will get out to a certain size, but oftentimes they'll like want to root in a little bit and then kind of create a new plant, and then they'll spread even further. It's not an aggressive spreader though, so it's not one that I would like caution you against, like sweet woodruff or something like that just like runs rampant around your garden, which is a beautiful ground cover, and if you have the space for it, awesome. But the phlox, it kind of like it creeps out, but slower and in more of a tidy way, if that makes sense. Ross said you should do a completely native garden and see how that turns out. Well, that would be very interesting here. What do you think, Aaron? Thoughts? Did you wear a mic today? I don't think he did.
No.
Our native landscape, let me show you a picture. It's like not the best looking landscape. There's not a ton of things. I mean, we've even had people send us a list of native plants for our area. And while that might be true, it's usually those things are found around water sources, which we don't have in abundance around here. So a lot of our landscape, if it's not next to a river or a stream or something, it's like native grasses that are green in the spring because we do get a fair amount of spring moisture, and then they just turn brown, and we're just brown for the rest of the season. And we do have like the occasional sagebrush or juniper that grows and has a little bit of color, but typically like for wildflowers and things like that, you see those either around a water source or in the spring, and it's pretty fleeting. But I get what you're saying. I think if we were to create a native landscape, it wouldn't necessarily be native. We would just use a bunch of drought tolerant stuff. Don't you think, Aaron? Like Russian sage and lavender and all those kinds of things that provide a lot of color, and we would still need to irrigate them, but not nearly like we would have to irrigate other things in our area, like our lawns and things like that. So yeah, I don't really have a huge interest in doing that because I do like grass and I do like, you know, boxwood hedging. I like formal gardens. So I'm not sure that we'll do that. Although our new property where we're going to be planting up the corners, we're going to go very much less formal. It'll be very relaxed out there, and we want to plant things that naturalize or that are just less maintenance. So it'll be interesting to see how those corners shape up. We might end up doing some things like that that look a little bit more native, like some grasses and other things like that. Garden Needs Time said, thank you for your inspiring video. So exciting to see all this color. When something looks purple and is called blue, how do you define blue and purple in the gardening world? If you figure that out, can you let me know? Because like, I don't get it. There are so many flowers, and we've done a video about blue flowers. I think I had 20 on that list, and I did a ton of research to put that together, and some of the plants that people were calling blue were definitely purple to me, and I just excluded them from the list. And there were a couple even on my list that I said, these are a little bit on the lavender side of blue. There's just not a lot of true blue. I mean, there's some, but I think everybody's take on that is a little bit different. We all see things a little bit different, and then our soil chemistry will make things look a little bit different. It's really interesting, that whole thing. But like you'll see, something in particular that I remember from the garden center, somebody special ordered a bunch of wave purple petunias. So we ordered them because that's what she asked for, and they showed up, and the wave purples are like magenta pink, and that's just what they are. If you want a wave petunia that's blue, or purple rather, you have to order the wave blues. It's just so confusing. I'm like, just call it what it is. But anyway, it's just something that, yeah, I don't know, that we deal with. Alyssa said, what do you do with ground cover phlox once it's done blooming? I tend to think it looks like grass growing in my flower bed, so we'll shear it back a little bit just to remove all of the spent blooms. And then usually it just flushes back some new foliar growth, and it looks really nice through the rest of the season. I can see what you're saying though about it looking like grass growing in the flower bed. There are a few things I've removed like that I'm like, oh, okay, I don't want it to look weedy in my flower beds, and everybody's opinion on that is different based on, you know, what kind of look you're going for in your garden. Isla Grace said, beautiful, informative, and interesting video like always. Thank you. Does salvia have a scent? And is it a good idea to pair it with panicle hydrangeas like Bobo or Limelight? Yes, salvia definitely has a scent. I'm not sure that the flowers themselves like have a fragrance that they emit, but the leaves sure have a fragrance, and it's very salvia-esque. I think people either love it or hate it, or I don't even know that I'm in a camp of love it or hate it. I'm in like the middle ground. Like if I brush against it, it's fine, but like when I have to go cut it back, I don't love it, you know, because it's pretty strong. But beautiful plant to pair with a hydrangea. Oh, I think that's the best contrast, to have a beautiful big hydrangea bloom and then a tall spiky bloom next to it that's either a deeper color or a different color. I think that's a beautiful idea. LA said, what does it mean to plant in drifts and to shear them back? So to plant in drifts means to plant in a larger grouping. So instead of planting, or not to plant in a row. If you're planting 3 or 5 of something, you know, a drift really isn't like planting them in a hedge or a line. That's more of a hedge. When you plant in a drift, it's more of like a mass. So you're doing like a group of, usually for me it means like 5, 7, or 9 typically. And I don't group them all like in a hedge. I group them kind of in a lazy shape, like a lazy circle shape, if that, I don't know that makes sense. To where it starts usually in the front of a flower bed and kind of works its way back behind another grouping of perennials, so that like one will kind of disappear into something else that's starting, and then it looks like drifts of things rather than like big chunks of things in the garden. And then to shear something back just means to shear it back to remove the spent blooms on it, typically. And sometimes when I shear things back, I'll go all the way to ground level, knowing that it'll take the plant longer to rebound and possibly bloom. But for us, we have such a long growing season that doesn't matter. And that way I get a totally fresh plant. But for those of you in a shorter growing season, you may want to just shear your plants back by half. Like for salvia, you can leave a bunch of the foliar growth at the bottom, which will then have a chance to soak in the sun and create energy for that plant to bloom again a little bit quicker. But I tend to like to shear everything down and let it come back fresh so that everything just has a fresh look about it and like a non-woody look on the bottom. Next video is doing a little dormant tree pruning. We have a Chanticleer pear tree over on the end of our west side flower bed area, and it had water sprouts so bad. It just needed a little bit of attention, not a lot, but I thought this is a great example. Even though it was kind of a crummy day and that area is really torn apart right now, but it had such a good example of things to look for when you're going out to do tree pruning that I thought you guys might like to see it. And I tried to go a little bit slower and really explain everything that I was cutting out of that tree, and I ended up with a beautiful bouquet. It's in our house right now, and the buds are swelling even more. I put them in a little bit of water in a vase, and so they should be blooming for us here pretty quick. So Sheila said, I've been watching your videos for years now, game changer for me in my garden, which is awesome. Love to hear that. So what did you do about your gopher problem? So we've had very few gopher issues in this last season because, you know, we bought the new property this last spring and it was full of gophers. Full, and that's where they were all coming from, and they were coming into specific areas of our garden and like chewing out the roots of things. I would look out and I would see a rose kind of like bent over looking, and I could go pick the whole rose, like a big established rose plant, right up out of its hole, and all the roots were gone, and the main trunk was like it looked like a beaver had come and like made everything into like sharp points underneath the soil, and I could just pull everything out. Anyway, we were just getting so sick of it. We have a neighbor who's awesome. He grew up farming, and he is a retired firefighter now, and he came over, and he like made it his mission in life to take care of our gopher problem, which was amazing. So he came over every day, like twice a day. He used traps, and so he had like a trap line going that he would check. And I don't know, Erin, have you even seen any gopher activity? Like, I hate to even say that because, like, you know, gophers are such a huge pain in the butt, and when it comes to gardens and plants and things, I mean, they make a huge mess. But yeah, he did such a great job, and there was no poisons or anything like that. It was all just trapping. Carletta said, do you have a garden tools video? I need to create a shopping list and really need digging and planting tools. You know, I think several years ago we did a what's in my garden cart tour, kind of showing all the tools that we use. We'll link it down below. Anyway, it's changed a little bit because we use a lot of augers now to do a lot of our digging for us, which maybe we could link one of those as well. But we use a drill with an auger. We also like use Fiskars shovels for the most part. And then my favorite trowel is from Gardener Supply. It's like the Lifetime Potting Trowel. It's shaped like a heart, like this. And I use the heck out of that thing because it scoops out so much soil, and it's like the right width for the type of plants I'm putting in the ground. I really like that one. I'm trying to think if there's any other digging tools in particular. I use a garden fork. I have one from DeWitt that's really good occasionally, but not that often. One of my favorite shovels throughout the years was from, is it Radius or Radius? It's a like a floral shovel, so it's a lot smaller, so it's not as heavy for me to dig out soil. It doesn't hold as much, but it's half size, and then it has a rounded part, like a round handle on the end. And I really like that one. For some reason, it just like fits me. We all have different opinions though on tools because you really have to use them yourself to get a feel for them. Like I use the Felco 2, which is actually built for a larger hand than I have, but I like the way it feels. I don't even hold it properly. Like I kind of hook my finger up kind of over the end of the handle, somehow weird, but it just fits and it feels good. So I think, you know, it kind of comes down to sometimes you can start with something that maybe I've recommended and it may work awesome for you, but you might find that something else, a different size or whatever, might be better for you. Mary said, this was such a timely video. I pruned a Korean pink dogwood this morning that I planted in honor of my mother-in-law a few years ago. Anyway, my question is this. I may have pruned too much. I'm not sure. So what should I watch for that would indicate stress? Or should I offer the poor little things in fertilizer as a peace offering now? I wouldn't worry too much about it, Mary. Like, honestly, plants are so resilient. Usually we try to stick to a don't cut more than 20% off rule, but sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we do what's called a rejuvenation prune, or like a shrub. We'll have a shrub that's just like wild and it's kind of like reverting back to maybe, I don't know, it's just reverting back to its wild roots. And sometimes we need to cut those things all the way back down to the ground and let them come up fresh. I'm going to do that to one of the, I don't know if you can even see it. Maybe you can see it out the back window. We have an old lilac that I thought about having removed, and I had the opportunity to have it removed like 2 weeks ago, and I decided, you know what, I think we're just going to cut the dead out, and we'll cut it back a lot, so like to the ground, and let it flush back new. So there's cases where you have to cut more than 20% off, and plants are usually totally fine. So I wouldn't stress too much, but definitely when the buds start to swell in the spring, a little bit of fertilizer wouldn't be a bad idea. Some tree tone or plant tone would be really good for that type of tree. And yeah, it's a good idea just to help stimulate a little bit of growth. I think right now it's a little bit too early to fertilize. You could, like here, we're not getting a ton of moisture now and it's starting to warm up. We would risk maybe losing some to runoff, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer to fertilize our stuff. Jill said, this is great. You had a Japanese maple that you had looked like the top wasn't growing this past summer, maybe by the gazebo. It's actually by our back sun porch, kind of underneath the maple tree. I have a Crimson Queen Japanese maple. The top completely died out of it. I don't know what happened, but the bottom was looking glorious still. She said, I had the same issue with a Bloodgood Japanese maple last season too. I'm wondering if you figured out what happened or if you will prune it to save it. I let mine sit to see what happens this year. So I did a lot of checking on mine to see if anything had happened to or if there was any life rather in the top growth, and there wasn't. It was completely done. So I lopped the top off, and now it looks really weird. And I thought, well, I'll give it last season to see what it did. The bottom looked great. And I think I have the opportunity to maybe train one of those lower branches into more of a leader. So it might just be one of those things that looks odd for a few years, but we might be able to recuperate the way it looks. And that might be something that you're able to do. So if you've got like a Bloodgood with a main trunk and you know the top part's dead, but you've got other branches coming off down here, if you decide that the top is clearly gone and that it's not like gonna come back, you can cut that off, but just leave part of the trunk so you have something to tie or to lash one of those lower branches up to, and that way you can help create a new leader. Farm Yoga said, hi, I received a friend request from Garden Answer right now telling us to enter a contest. Is this legit? No, it is not legit. If you receive anything on Facebook from any random page, there's a lot of them out right now that are trying to scam. And it's not just happening to us, it's happening to other pages as well, and it's just like horrible. We keep reporting these pages, and I know a lot of you guys have been reporting them as well. So if you get a request like that, please, please do not give them your information, especially your credit card information. We would never ask you for that. And then report them if you can. Like our channel is just Garden Answer. It's 2 words, and you'll notice that the other pages, they'll be like weird dashes or they'll have a really weird spelling, but they steal our pictures and make it look very much so like it's our page, and it's not, which is just horrible. Yeah, that's true. Erin just said, when we announce winners. So if I have never verbally said your name as a winner to a contest that we have done a giveaway, then it's not legit. We'll always announce winners in these recap videos to giveaways. And so if you haven't heard your name be announced, then just ignore it, report the page. That would help us out so hugely. And I'm sorry to all of you guys that these pages are like coming after. We also deal with, like, in the comment section, a lot of these like scammer guys, like random pages that people ask for you to be their Facebook friend. We try our very best to keep up on those, and we ban people every day, like left and right. We're banning these pages. And sometimes we miss it for a couple hours before we get to it and actually ban the person, and they've like commented on everybody's comment. It just, makes me
want to ditch Facebook.
Yeah, it makes Erin want to ditch Facebook. I'm not quite there yet because we have so many like lovely people on Facebook that we get to, yeah. Lisa said, how is that tree that the delivery person ran over doing? Looks pretty good. It looks like all the rest of our trees right now. I don't think we'll know until this coming year. I think it will leaf out beautifully this spring, but I think the true test will be when it gets hot. When it gets hot, typically things start showing stress the most. So we'll just have to give it some time. Honestly, of any tree for that person to have run over, it was the best one because, not that there is a best one, but at least it wasn't like down in the line of trees, so we don't have to worry about like missing one, but that's at the very end. And it was one of those trees that I was a little bit like, ooh, should we put it there? I know that we're going to be having a flower bed kind of coming around it, so it wouldn't be a horrible thing if it doesn't survive. We can put something else there, but I really do hope it lives. Garden Dilemma said, off the subject, but I would love to know what the hose and reel you have there in the background are. So tired of my hoses kinking on me. Yes, you and me both. There's nothing worse than a hose that kinks Oh, I remember down at the garden center, it was like if a hose would kink and if it could knock anything over, it would. And then like by the end of the day, if you watering, you just like wanted to drop kick that hose. You just like, oh, there's nothing more frustrating. So what we have are hose links. They're a retractable hose. They're 82 feet long. So they reach quite a long distance. The only thing about hose links that I wish was different, but it would make it a lot heavier, and I'm not sure that it would make it as possible. I do wish the hose diameter was a little bit bigger, because what is it, a 1/2 inch, Erin? We usually have a 5/8 inch. It makes a difference in the amount of water that comes out. Typically, it doesn't make enough difference for me to not have those linked, clearly, because we have them all over the place now. And it is nice. I mean, you can retract that out however long you want it. You use it, and then you just give it a slight tug, and it wheels itself back in. And so you're not having to, manually roll up the hose, and it also keeps your hoses better, so they're less likely to kink. So anyway, I will link those down below. We've done a video, I think, just centered right around the hose link, kind of explaining how they work and things like that. So you might check out one of those videos to see if it's something that you might be interested in. Barbara said, when do you trim butterfly bushes? Typically that's best to leave to do till spring. They do bloom on new wood, and you do want to prune them, because what happens if you don't prune a butterfly bush is they will become what's called a second story plant, which means that they will grow and get big, and then they'll create blooms just on the top growth, because they only bloom on new wood, and they're blooms that you can only see from a second story window, rather than like being able to see a nice full lush looking plant. So it's something you do want to put on your pruning schedule. If you live in a warmer climate, you can do it in the fall as part of your fall cleanup, and I've done that several times in the past with no problem. But if you live in a colder climate, it's best to leave it till spring, because you can open plants up. It's just a known thing. You open plants up to more susceptibility to winter kill or winter damage when you prune things in the fall. And sometimes it's just necessary to do that. It was for me when I worked down at the garden center, because I had no time in the spring or not enough time to get all my stuff done. So I just knew a bulk of my cleanup needed to be done in the fall. But if you can wait till spring until the buds start to swell, that's the best time to prune, because then you can locate the most robust, healthy looking buds, and that's where you want to prune it down to. It's kind of like hydrangeas, because sometimes on a stem you'll have like lots of different leaf buds, but some of the upper ones will be a little weak looking, and you don't want to leave those necessarily, because it'll just be a weaker branch, weaker growth. If you can take it down to something that looks really strong, that's better. And so it'll be something that we tackle in our garden, I'm guessing in like the next maybe month and a half or so, if we continue having temperatures like we have. Like yesterday, did I already say it was 54 yesterday? It was gorgeous. We had a gorgeous weekend. It looks like it's going to get a little cooler by the end of this week, but still, like, we're hovering at or above freezing. It's just been wonderful. Sarah said, congratulations to you and your family on the new arrival of Samantha Grace, who is sleeping right now, by the way. She was in the recap video last week, and that worked out beautifully. She stayed asleep the whole time. She has been like awake a little bit more now, so she's 3 weeks old today, and so she's been a little bit fussier this past week, but definitely, like, she sleeps really well, she eats really well, and she's just been a gift. So anyway, I got off topic. Hold on. I'm a younger gardener and I love your videos and helpful tips. Question, do you remove the branches going into the middle of the tree trunk because it's more aesthetically pleasing, or is it because it aids in the health of the tree? Well, kind of both. I mean, number one, because it aids in the health of the tree. When you have branches cruising back into the center, you're going to create a lot of airflow issues in the end. The structure of the tree won't be as nice. So, I mean, you kind of hit both of those things by pruning those out. It's kind of like with roses. You don't want rose canes going right back in toward the center of the rose plant. You want to keep as much airflow as possible, but also when you cut those out, it creates a really nice shaped plant. Same with trees. Lily said, I noticed your lovely Fiddle Leaf Fig in your lounge room. How do you get it to look so healthy and lush? Dumb luck. I don't know. It likes its spot. It lived up here for a while. In fact, we did a video about it on how to care for Fiddle Leaf Figs, which I think I've got the basic care down, but I'm not like particularly good to my houseplants. Like, they don't get fertilizer as often as you'd think that I would give them fertilizer. Like, I don't know. I don't even want to admit how many times I fertilize my houseplants in a year. But I just give it a window where it gets lots of light. So right now it gets morning sun for a little while, and then it's just in that window, which is just naturally a little bit brighter, and then we water about once a week, and we just give it I don't even know how much we give it. We just give it a good watering, and it seems to be loving its life. And Jill said, what does limbing up mean on the crabapple? So limbing up, when I say that, and I really need to like take a step back when I'm saying things outside, because I think a lot of times I use an improper term or I don't explain things very well sometimes. But limbing up means that we're taking off lower limbs to raise the tree canopy so that you can either walk around it or get a lawnmower underneath it with ease. So a lot of times when you're planting a tree, you know, there's a lot of limbs really low, and it's not necessarily the best thing. Like for a driveway area, those trees out there along our driveway, we're going to have limbed up significantly because we have to have the ability to still get semi trucks down our lane. So it's going to end up having to be a really tall canopy, and that's why we chose such big trees. In the end, they get really good size because we needed them to not look weird, to have them limbed way up so that vehicles could get underneath them. Next video was a gazebo area update and tour, and we had recently put up a video of the pine trees and junipers being removed from around the gazebo area, but in that video there was still the tool shed and the pergola, which we had removed. And so we wanted to just update you guys on what the area was looking like. I mean, it is looking very, very different. But we want to document every step along the way because I feel like it's important to document even the chaos. And it's going to be chaos for a couple of, like probably a couple, 3, 4, 5 years. It'll look like it. I think once the greenhouse is in, which it's probably not going to be in, like, I think we'll be working on foundation here for the next few months, and then the construction will start midsummer. So I don't think we'll actually even have that area put together in terms of greenhouse. Like realistically, I'm putting a fall date on there. Like I think it'll be usable by sometime in the fall. Like I like to think as realistically as possible so I don't get disappointed. So we'll have a chance to work on some of the landscaping in the area, hopefully get some trees in and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely different. I also in that video talked about how I was going to be tagging a lot of the plants with red tape, and we're going to move them out into an area just a random area out in the new property. We're going to plant them just so they're, you know, in the soil somewhere, and then eventually we'll move them back either to that area or to other flower beds in our garden. And then the rest of the stuff, like smaller perennials and things that are easy to replace, we're going to have friends and family come and they can dig what they want and take them home. But anyway, the tool shed went to some friends of ours who have a farm. They're going to be using it as bunny housing, and I wanted to declutter the landscape. I want nothing to be taking away from this greenhouse. I want the greenhouse to be like the star sitting out there, and the chicken coop will be there as well. But the tool shed was serving no purpose for us. It never has. And there were some things I could have done to it, I think, to make it look like a little bit more charming. Like it needed a new door. The door was like kind of crooked and it was really hard to open. And then there was like it needed a new window too, I think. And it had kind of a lean. It's solid, like it's not going anywhere. And they're gonna get lots of use out of it as animal housing, which is perfect. And then the pergola went to a friend's house as well. So if we can get rid of those things that weren't really doing it for us in our landscape, but other people can use in theirs and love in their space, that is like a win-win to me. It makes me feel not so bad taking so many things out. But the first comment cracks me up. OMG, it looks like an atomic bomb has fallen in your garden. You're not wrong. There are moments where I look out there and I'm like, oh,
what have I done?
Like, what have we done? I try not to let any emotional, like usually I don't have a lot of emotional attachment to plants, like, because in what we do, we're constantly like changing things, and I don't have like the time or whatever to get emotional about stuff like that. And usually when we're doing something, it's to change it for the better and to put things in that are not as disease prone or insect prone so that we can get away from that kind of maintenance and having to spray stuff. But then there are moments I look out and I'm like, yes, like this is starting, like I can see it and it's starting to form, even though it's like there's not as much there, I can see what it's going to look like in the end. And I think it'll be a better reflection of our style, like both of ours, because like I like formal gardens, but so does Erin. We like that structure. We like beautiful big shade trees. We like, I don't know, we like a lot of the same things. I think we come together. Like Erin wants to put in a formal rose garden, which when he said that to me last year, I'm like, who are you? Who
are you?
That's crazy though. Like, I don't know. We've kind of like, part of me has changed in that I don't do as much. I don't know. Don't you think like I've cleaned up my style a bit? It's a little less messy, and yours is a lot more relaxed. Like you're okay. Like for me, having a formal rose garden, I'm like, oh, I don't know. that roses are so much maintenance because a lot of the ones we would put in, you would need a deadhead. They get aphids so bad in our area, we'd have to spray them. But you're not fazed by that, which is kind of crazy to me. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to have some sort of a contract on who's going to actually take care of the insects and stuff like that in there. Anyway, I just got way off. I don't even remember where I was. So I'm just going to move on to the second one. SXD29 said, as much as I'm excited for all the new changes, I'm going to miss all these areas of your house. And I think that many share your same sentiments. It brought so much character and whimsical feel overall. I love the pergola, the pallet walkway. The pallet walkway is going to stay, I think. And the gazebo area. It was just so unique and added such beauty to your house. Please don't get me wrong. I'm very happy for all the exciting changes you're bringing and documenting for us. Thank you. But I'm kind of sad to see all these familiar places, trees, plants, etc. go. I used to enjoy seeing the changes in those plants year after year. I hope I'm not the only one feeling this way. Thank you for letting me express my feelings. I love it when we get sweet comments like that because it is a loss. I mean, you get rid of things like that and it's like, dang, I mean, it's going to change like the whole trajectory of our garden. But like I've explained many, many times, you know, the things that we got rid of, the pines were full of blight. I mean, there were things that were, to me, necessary, needed to go in order for us to put things in that will long-term be better for our space and better for our style. And the gazebo just never fit the aesthetic with everything else going on in our property. It was built originally as a backdrop for a wedding for the second owners of this house, for one of their daughters. And it just like, this is a farmhouse it's a farmhouse trying to be colonial kind of. And then we have a farmhouse style barn out there and the chicken coop has that look. The gazebo has very much so a rustic feel to it. And it's going to go beautifully in the park where it's being rehomed to in our town. So I think it's going to be perfect where it's going.
I think some people see change as exciting and other people see change as disappointment.
Yeah, I can see it both ways too. Because I have like it depends on how I'm feeling that day, how much sleep I've had. If Samantha Grace was easy to put back down after her 2 a.m. feeding or what. But yeah.
There's like the pioneer types who have to go out and conquer new land. Mm-hmm. And then there's the types who stay at home. And, you know.
I think you and I are those two people. I think you're the pioneer. I think Aaron, like, you want to lay waste and put everything back in its spots and like redo. And I would be much more apt to just like make small changes and hold on to things a lot longer than I should. So I think we balance each other pretty well. Blue Krause said, can we talk about how you were really swinging those scissors around haphazardly? I knew I was going to get called out on that. I actually thought about it like midway through the video and I thought, nope, I'm in it to win it now with these scissors. But yeah, I probably shouldn't be like flinging the scissors around and putting them in my pocket and such.
I am running with scissors.
I apologize. A bad example. Claire said, now I asked a question of you guys about kids and play sets because we are considering getting a play set for our kids, but we're not sure. Like, I think a lot of the feedback was so good. Everybody said get one. Well, not everybody. Some people said it's a waste. Don't do it. You know, your kids have a ton of area to play. Get a swing or something like that. And then a lot of you guys were like, do it, but don't get one that's super fancy like the one you want.
Look
Go
to cedarworks.com.
Cedarworks, yeah, let's just flash a picture up of what you showed me the other day. Like, I don't...
Also, it's like $60,000.
Yeah, so we won't be getting that one. But I liked Claire's comment. She said, if I had to do it again in terms of play sets, I wouldn't go as grand. Talking to you, Aaron. With the play set, keep it simple with a couple of swings and maybe a slide. My son loved the big raised table height sand table we made. I like that idea because she said it was perfect all year round, especially when there was 2 feet of snow on the ground because he could still bundle up, which kids are impervious to weather. I would spend hours outside playing even if the, snow was crazy and it was cold, but he could bundle up and still play with all of his trucks in the sand. Like, that's such a fun idea. I think Benjamin would love that. Also, you can make a simple cover so cats and bunnies and stuff don't use it for a washroom. If you line the table with a good rubber or plastic liner, it's perfect for adding a little water so the sand can be shaped. Don't go small. We used a full sheet of plywood, so it was 4x8 with 6-inch sides. Years of play. Super simple to keep clean and keeps the kids clean too. After all the sand in the shoes every day gets a little old too. So keeping it up, the sand up, so that they're not getting sand all over themselves. And then you can stain the wood table to blend into the decor. That'd be kind of a fun video or a fun project to build. I could build that. Kathy said, hey Laura, the linden tree is curving to the left at the top. Is that going to be curving towards your new greenhouse? Can you change that without damaging the tree? So that tree we are actually digging out and we're going to put it on the new property, and I'm going to face it in a way that the wind is going to correct that problem, I think. We get such fierce winds through the summer that if any tree has a lean and you face it the way the wind, or face it against, is that right, against the wind, so like the leans this way, the wind comes this way, it's going to naturally help form your tree back over. And I think leans like that typically take care of themselves as the tree grows.
We are going to be staking a bunch
We
of
will
trees.
be, yeah.
We should say that.
Yeah, we are going to be staking a bunch of the maple trees along our driveway though, because we didn't do that this past fall. We kind of knew it was going to have to happen. Not every one of them will need to be staked, but a lot of them, like the trunk is really straight up to the leaf canopy, and it still looks great and very straight, but then the top has like a major curve, and we either didn't notice it or the wind maybe created it. I don't know what happened, but anyway, we will put together a video when we stake those trees, because it'll be like braces for a little while.
Yeah.
And then
It'll be like headgear.
yeah, headgear down our driveway. Suzanne said, I can't wait to see your vision for this area. Me too. It'll be interesting. I wish I were in your family or a friend. I'd be coming by all the time to get your plants, bricks, and anything else you're getting rid of. Why aren't you replanting some of the perennials on the new property, or do you want to start fresh? So the perennial situation, I'm not ready to plant them. We don't have our zones set up yet. They will be this year. But I really just want the perennials to be dug up and then just planted once in somebody else's yard, instead of, there's some things that I'm willing, like the bigger structural evergreens and stuff like that, that I want to try to use again, because we've got several years into those plants. But perennials are so easy to replace that I'm just not quite ready to move all of those. That would take a lot. There's a lot of plants back there. I don't know, in passing I think like, oh, we could just dig all of them up quick and move them, but it would be a massive undertaking. So I think they'll be better off in new homes, and perennials are pretty easy to replace. Jean said, I'm willing to predict that the only regret you will have is that the greenhouse is too small. No joke, you should double the size. If you saw the price tag on double the size of a greenhouse, we couldn't afford it. Nope. Not even with a discount from Harley, we couldn't afford it. So, and honestly, so we were considering the Victorian Grand Lodge and then the size right up from that, which it added just a few extra feet, which I mean is significant when you're placing tables and things like that for plants and such. But for a few reasons, we decided on the Victorian Grand Lodge, and the number one reason is that is the one that I saw initially. That's the one I stood in when we were in England at Beetham Nurseries, and I just thought, this is it. This is what I want to have one day. And I honestly feel like the scale of it is perfect. The proportions are perfect. When you get into the size up of greenhouse, the line of the roof changes because the roof is taller, and I actually like the look of the Grand Lodge better. I feel like the proportions are really charming and perfect. And honestly, I don't need it to be a huge space. Of course, I mean, yes, if I could have like a huge greenhouse and have tons of room to stage and put a bunch of beautiful furniture in there, I would love that. But I think for our size of yard, the Victorian Grand Lodge will be perfect, and it's not going to be used for production. We will have like citrus plants and tropicals. It'll be more of an extension of our home, like kind of look at it as a bigger sun porch. That's kind of how I'm dreaming of using it. With like a small furniture, a small bistro set we can sit and have dinner in there. And then if we want to entertain, we can move a bigger table in there if we need to. But I don't really want it to be full of supplies, like garden supply. I want everything in there to be beautiful, if that makes sense. And then we have got our bigger cold frame / greenhouse in the back that's got more space, and that's where we can spread out and do more of our practical kind of gardening stuff. Linda said, you haven't had that plow and hearth furniture that long. Hope you find a place for it. Yes. So my plan is, before we decided to get the Hartley Botanic Greenhouse, I had planned on buying a shed or something like that. For the back of our cut flower garden, we are going to have a small orchard back there that I want to have a shed kind of plunked into the middle of it, and then the cut flower garden will come in the front of that. And I want it to be whatever shed or structure I end up with. I want big double doors in the front, and I would like to have that table, that plow and hearth table, set right in the center of that building with a light fixture over it, so you can see like from the far end of the cut flower garden, you can look down the aisle and you can see all the flowers, and then like 2 double doors open wide with that table under it. Perfect spot to work on flower arrangements or seed gathering or harvest, whatever. You can go set your stuff on that table. I think it'll be a beautiful vista right there too. So I do have plans on using it. Sarah said, "You're so fun to watch. Thank you. Clearly doing what you were created to do. God bless you." And I just, like, those kind of comments are so encouraging, especially, like, I loved reading that because it's on such a vulnerable type video. When we are laying waste to so much of our garden in preparation to change it, like, I don't always know what I want in spaces like that. And some days I feel like I'm in way over my head. I'm not a garden designer. Like, I can design a space, but like, it's not my profession. Like, it's not something that I tackle every day or, think about hardscape or think about all of these things. And so sometimes it can feel like a daunting task, and sometimes I feel like I don't have it. Some days I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I have no business doing this. I think it's just normal for every person. I don't know.
I think for you, you go projects alone. So I think you might get overwhelmed because you would never include anyone else on the process. So you really are doing it alone. Whereas I think other people know what their weaknesses are, and they're more relational, and they know when to include other people in their weaknesses, like get them on board.
Which we've talked about, maybe like incorporating a garden designer in, like, just to give, not like plant choice exactly, but like to collaborate ideas, because I do have some ideas of what I would like, but to get somebody else involved who's got a more global approach to landscape design. Like, I've thought about asking Klaus, like, would you be willing to like collaborate with me on this design? He's got such a gorgeous garden. But yeah, I do favor doing projects on my own. I always have. I'm not a committee girl. I'm not, like, I've been on committees before. Oh my gosh, I just, like, nothing gets done quick. And so, like, whenever I did a project like the Harvest Festival at the garden center or the pots downtown, like, I just wanted to do it by myself, because then I didn't have to mess with anything, and I could do it quickly, make decisions quickly, and so forth. But I do, like, I have days where I see my weaknesses in processes like this, and days where I feel like I can conquer it. So I don't know, it's just encouraging. I just thought that was a really sweet comment. So last video for this week was DIY wire topiaries for houseplants. In that video, I showed you just a very inexpensive way to create some small topiary forms for smaller plants like houseplants. And I think they turned out pretty cute. There was one that was on a stem or a standard with a little heart on the top, and then one was a bigger heart, and then I created like a little obelisk, right? Obelisk, no, orb. I don't know. Anyway, circle on top of a standard. And they turned out pretty cute. And then they're just simple terracotta pots or clay pots. And I didn't even pot the plants. I just popped them down in the pot and then put a little moss around the top to disguise it. And they're meant to be Valentine's gifts. And that was kind of the original thought process. And then I kind of wanted to turn it into something that, like, you can create these topiaries, not just for Valentine's. You can create all kinds of different shapes and use wild colors for the season that, or the holiday, or make them more subdued like I did. So that they kind of have more staying power throughout the whole year. But anyway, Annette said, the pot you painted, will it still be porous because you wiped some of the paint off? I think that the pot, unless you use an actual sealer, it's going to have some element of being porous still. In fact, the only reason why I didn't use a sealer on that pot was because I didn't actually plant the ivy in it. I have it down in its plastic container so that no water is going to be hitting the sides of the container. Otherwise, if I was to plant that ivy straight in the pot with soil and, using water and stuff, I would have to seal it on the inside so that no water made it through to the outside. It would mess that paint up really quick. So that's something to consider. If you are wanting to paint your terracotta, use a sealer. We've done a video, we'll link it down below. I use several different sealers on saucers to, like, test their durability to water. I can't remember which one won. Do you remember? It was like a...
I think maybe there was a tie, like spar urethane.
No. Was it the? It was the As Seen on TV one, wasn't it?
It was the flex tape or
flex seal,
Flex seal,
something like that. Anyway, we'll link that down below. There's some really easy, like, spray sealers you can use that keep water from going in and out. But in this case, it didn't matter because I was just using it as kind of like a, what do they call those? Cash, like a sleeve.
Oh.
Like a pretty sleeve on the outside. Anyway, next was, would we be able to form some sort of obelisk for outdoor containers using the twine, or would it not hold up to the elements? I don't think it would hold up to the elements for very long. I also don't think it's suitable to grow anything larger than a small house plant. because while I feel like the durability was good, like the wire was strong enough to hold up a small ivy or the ficus that I used, I don't think you could put any bigger vine on it because I think it would eventually want to weigh it down and bend it over. And Sarah said, these are great and I would really like to try them. Please would you post a second video at regular speed? Not sure why we'd put a demo on hyper speed. Exactly. I told Erin the same thing. I watched back the video and I'm like, nobody can tell what I'm doing. There were a few things that were not in our favor with that project. One, the wire is super squirrely. So it was like flipping all over the place and it was really hard to keep in focus when we were trying to film it. So if we like slowed it down, it's likely that it would not look very good. Also be careful with that wire because if you do like scratch your skin with it, which I did 3 times, right here and then twice on my thumb, it will make you bleed. And if we slowed down that footage, I think you would see my hands bleeding like crazy. I had like paper towels next to me like, sopping up and they're just like very surface scratches from the wire and they just bled like crazy. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now that we're trying to film a video showing my hands doing something and they're just bleeding all over. So anyway, yeah, it just didn't work out for this video. I totally understand it. That though, because I thought the same thing. However, I mean, you just pick a shape and you bend the wire to that shape. It's a pretty simple concept. So I'm hoping that most of you guys were able to see enough of it to kind of get your juices flowing, your creative juices. Bonnie said, I have a houseplant question. I recently put a small fern on my coffee table, which happens to be where I work often on my laptop. My plant shriveled and died a few days after placing it there. It's because it's a fern. Ferns are so hard. Could this have been from the heat coming from the fan or the electromagnetic waves? Amazing how quickly it affected my plant. Yes, it could be the heat coming from your fan. Ferns are, it depends on the type of fern, but a lot of them are incredibly fickle and they need to have moisture in the air. They need to be watered often and they cannot take any kind of draft. So it doesn't surprise me that that happened. So like, don't beat yourself up about it. You could try cutting it back and putting it in a different location. To where it's not getting a bunch of like direct heat or anything on it and keep it more moist, and it may bounce back, but that just happens with ferns, and sometimes you just have to try a few of them in a few different spots in your house to find that sweet spot where the ferns will live. I have one Boston fern that I've had for a couple of different like seasons, like for several seasons, and I've never been able to keep a fern alive for that long. It sits right inside this window, so it gets a lot of nice bright light. It's in a container, in its plastic nursery container still, but it's sitting down in a stand that doesn't have any drain. So it actually sits in a little bit of water, and I think that that helps it as well. So I've been like nobody touch it. Nobody even look at it. Like I don't want to do anything different to this plant to mess it up. But I swear if I moved it like a couple feet to one side of the window, it probably would start to die. Ferns are just weird. We don't have humidity in our air either, so it's incredibly hard to keep them living. Kara said, I noticed you got some paint on your coat. Were you able to get it out? I actually didn't notice that during the video, but I wore the coat yesterday, and Erin's like, were you painting in this coat? So yeah, I had noticed that there was a bunch of white on my coat. I just didn't even take the time to look and see what it was, but clearly it came from that project, and I haven't tried to get it out yet. Hopefully it comes out. Audrey said, what brand of leaf shine do you recommend? I've been using the Bonide leaf shine, and it's like a moisture protector as well, and it works pretty good. I used to use, and I don't think it's even on the market anymore, there was a leaf shine, I can't remember the brand, but it was in an aerosol can. It's the best leaf shine I've ever used, and I think that there was something wrong with it. Maybe it was the fact that it was an aerosol spray, I'm not really sure, but they've since removed it from the market, and this one works pretty good. But I do notice, like with the aerosol can, I was able just to spray plants and it would like cover everything, and it was wonderful. With the Bonide stuff, when you spray it on, it is good to use a little paper towel and like just kind of wipe the leaves just to get full coverage and to wipe off any dust, and I think that's good practice anyway. The other stuff, I never noticed either one of them like being a detriment to the plant. And I have seen some people say, well, leaf shine is not good to use. I've never seen it hurt my plants in any way. So I'm in the camp of using leaf shine because I think it makes the plants look nice. Espoma also has a leaf shine that's in a spray bottle as well. And either one of those, the Bonide or the Espoma, you'd want to spray it on and use a paper towel or a rag to kind of buff it onto the leaves. Living on the Delta said, Christmas 2021 will be awesome, but 22 will be better with baby girl walking and Laura pregnant again then. 2023 with baby number 3.
Nice.
No. No. Yeah, that comment cracked me up. I think we're good. I think 2 is all I can handle. Like divide and conquer. There's 2 of us, 2 kids, we're perfect. Same person said, Erin, are you planning how you will light the Hartley? I'm interested.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not going to be a whole lot to connect to. Like you don't want to do staples or
you don't
screws or
mess with
nails. I don't know. I don't know that I really want to be climbing all over it or even putting ladders up against it or
what do you
anything like
think
that.
about getting like 3, you know, like the white trees you had that one year, but like putting them inside, like in the center or something? Like
that's what I was thinking is maybe hanging some stuff on the inside since it's glass.
Yeah.
As opposed to putting things on the outside.
And you could put like some really pretty deer on the outside of it.
Yeah.
Last comment was from Laura Mason. She said, that is so adorable. This is off topic, but I had to let you know you saved me this weekend. I'm a personal gardener for private clients, and my client asked me to go to the grocery store and get some flowers to make a bouquet for his kitchen table. I must have looked like a deer in headlights. I've been there. Not my comfort zone at all. I specialize in outdoor containers. I literally broke out in a cold sweat. On the way to the store, you popped in my head. Okay, what would Laura do? So I just recalled all the bouquets I've seen you make all these years, and believe it or not, it came out amazing. That's so awesome. He requested purple and white, and everything was red and white for Valentine's Day, but I found one bunch of purple roses and several other bundles and spent 30 minutes putting it together. So thank you for the major save, and thank you for inspiring me for when I had to get out of my comfort zone. That makes it worth it to me. Like that, hearing that is so awesome, to feel like you could tackle something that was outside of your comfort zone, because I have been there in so many different, at so many different times in my life where somebody's asked me to do like, at our chamber banquet, my mom and I have put together several like centerpieces, and they need to be big and grand, and that used to not be in my comfort zone. Like I would plant plants out in the dirt. Like that was what I did. It wasn't like creating these big large scale displays or doing a window display, you know, something like that. And it took a while for me to feel really comfortable, and I got to a point where like I think of an idea now, and I feel like it can be tackled. It's not, we can figure it out. Like there is a way to get this done. And so I don't know. I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. And I don't know, just hearing that and that what we, you know, our videos and things and projects have helped in that situation is just amazing. Awesome. So thank you for leaving that comment. And that is it for today's recap video. I think I'm going to actually get outside this afternoon and do some very light duty garden work. There are, like where I planted the lungworts underneath the crabapple last year, the fountain and the concrete fence section have been removed already because we're getting ready to tear grass out and things like that. But I've got some perennials like those lungworts and some heucheras that I want to save. So I think it's a perfect day out there to go do that. I mean, they're all dormant right now, so I can lift them up and go plant them again, and they should not skip a beat. So I think it's going to be a nice afternoon. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope you're all having a really good start to your week, and we will see you in the next video.